You talk because you fear invisibility. You expose your power to people who'll weaponize it. The strong don't speak. They let their silence pronounce judgment. Chapter 1. The Mirror Turns. Silence as a Weapon. You were trained to believe that if you don't speak, you don't exist. That if you don't explain, justify, and constantly perform yourself, people will forget you. That's why you overshare, overtalk, and overexpose. You confuse noise with relevance. Understand this. In any power structure, the one who speaks least controls most. The court listens to the king, but the king listens to almost no one. Silence isn't absence. It's pressure. It's a mirror you hold up to the people around you and force them to confront themselves without guidance, without reassurance, without escape. When you stay silent, you create a vacuum. Most people are terrified of that vacuum. They rush to fill it with words, confessions, explanations, emotional leaks. They reveal their fear of not being liked. They reveal their hunger for validation. They reveal where they can be controlled. Meanwhile, you've given them nothing. No leverage, no handle, no crack. This is the first lens shift. You are not obligated to make others comfortable. You are not required to be readable, predictable, or emotionally accessible. Your silence is not a defect. It is a filter. Silence filters the weak from the strong. The weak interpret your quiet as rejection, arrogance, or disrespect. They get triggered, offended, insecure. They project their wounds onto you and expose themselves. The strong recognize your silence as intent. They see you are not scrambling for approval. They begin to measure their words more carefully around you. Machiavelli understood that a prince gains power not by being understood, but by being unreadable. If people can predict you, they can preempt you, trap you, and weaponize your patterns against you. When you speak too much, you donate your patterns for free. You tell them what moves you, what angers you, what flatters you, what scares you. Silence denies them that map. Notice what happens the next time you enter a room and withdraw your need to be on. Don't rush to laugh. Don't rush to validate. Don't rush to fill the gaps. Just observe. Let your presence sit heavy. Say less than you want to. Respond slower than they expect. Watch how people adjust to you, or break themselves over the tension. This is where the mirror turns. You stop dancing for their comfort. They start bending around your gravity. The first step toward real power is simple. You must break the reflex of explaining yourself. You must become comfortable being misunderstood, misjudged, and quietly hated. Because when you no longer fear their misinterpretation, silence becomes available to you as a weapon. And that's when the game actually starts. Chapter 2. The Psychological Blade of Absence. Human beings are not afraid of noise. They are afraid of the void. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the absence of certainty. And the mind hates uncertainty. When you withhold your words, you are doing something very specific to the other person's nervous system. You are denying them closure. You are denying them predictable feedback. You are denying them narrative control. The brain is wired to resolve unknowns. When you don't react, when you don't justify, when you don't explain, the other person's mind starts working overtime to fill the blank. They replay what they said. They analyze your micro-reactions. They create stories. Is he angry? Did I say something wrong? Does he know more than he's showing? Is he judging me? This is the psychological blade of absence. You force them to turn on themselves. You say nothing, yet they experience you as pressure. Most men throw this weapon away. They blurt out their emotions, intentions, and positions instantly. They cannot stand the discomfort of not fixing the vibe or not clearing up misunderstandings. They bleed clarity everywhere, so no one feels tense. They think this makes them good, honest, transparent. In reality, it makes them predictable, controllable, and forgettable. Look at interrogation rooms. The most powerful tactic is not screaming, it's silence. The officer asks a question and then shuts up. The suspect starts talking, then keeps talking, then over-explains, then contradicts himself, then confesses. Silence doesn't force the truth. It forces the mind to escape discomfort, even at the cost of self-betrayal. That's what your silence does socially. When you don't rush to reassure, people reveal how insecure they are. When you don't rush to correct, people reveal how guilty they feel. When you don't rush to argue, people reveal how much your opinion matters to them. Absence amplifies your presence. When you constantly speak, your words become cheap. When you rarely speak, each sentence carries weight. People replay it. They quote it. They wonder what you're not saying. This psychological mechanism is simple. You withdraw verbal feedback. Their brain detects uncertainty and potential threat. Anxiety rises. They act to reduce that anxiety. By talking more, revealing more, chasing your approval, or exposing their insecurity, you remain still. You learn everything. You give away nothing. Machiavellian strategy is not about cruelty for its own sake. It is about efficiency. Silence is efficient. It saves energy, conceals intention, extracts information, and creates an aura of depth and danger around you, all without effort. But to use this blade, you must first detach from the childish need to be understood. You must accept that in any room, the one who cannot tolerate silence is already beneath the one who can. Silence is not passivity. It is psychological pressure applied with zero movement. Chapter 3. The Predators and the Prey. Behavioral Archetypes. In every social environment, 3 archetypes quietly organize the hierarchy: the talker, the observer, and the ghost. Where you sit among these determines whether you are prey, competitor, or hunter. The talker is the easiest to spot. He fills every gap, jokes the loudest, shares details no one asked for. He exposes his beliefs, traumas, fantasies, and limits in real time. He thinks he's winning attention. In reality, he's giving away intel. He is a walking dossier. Anyone ruthless enough can study him for an hour and know exactly how to manipulate, flatter, provoke, or isolate him. The talker is entertainment and resource, never a threat. The observer is quieter. He speaks, but selectively. He listens more than he reveals. He watches body language, dynamics, subtext. He remembers who interrupts whom, who looks away when challenged, who laughs too eagerly at authority. The observer is dangerous because he harvests information while leaking very little. People sense this and both respect and fear his silence. He becomes the one others consult, but never fully understand. Then there is the ghost. The ghost doesn't just speak less. He exists on a different layer of the room. He is present, but untouchable. He answers directly, but never elaborates unless necessary. He does not volunteer stories. He doesn't join every circle. He can disappear from a social setting without explanation and return with his value intact or even increased. People project myths onto him because they don't have facts. The talker seeks validation. The observer seeks understanding. The ghost seeks leverage. Your current identity is probably fused with the talker, maybe not in volume, but in motive. You talk to close distance. You disclose to be liked. You explain yourself to avoid being misunderstood. In predator terms, you're flashing your underbelly and calling it authenticity. This is not about becoming an awkward statue. It's about upgrading your archetype. You move from talker to observer first. You ask more than you state. You let others finish completely before you respond. You resist the urge to one-up or match every story. You let silence land after someone reveals something. You will notice a shift. People start telling you more than they planned. They feel oddly comfortable opening up to you. That's their language for, I'm filling the silence because you're not. From there, you refine into the ghost. You are physically present less often. You do not attend every social ritual. When you speak, you stay lean, short, clear, minimal. When people ask personal questions, you answer one level up from what they want. If they ask, "Why are you so quiet?" you say, "I just prefer watching," and leave it there. You let your actions in the real world speak. Work, results, outcomes. Predators operate on scarcity. What is rare becomes valuable. A man who is always available, always talking, always explaining, is common. A man who appears, observes, and says only what is necessary becomes an event. The goal is not to be socially crippled. The goal is to remove your words from the market of cheap attention and convert them into a controlled, rare resource that signals power, not desperation. You are not required to narrate yourself. You are required to protect yourself. Silence is how predators stay unseen until it's too late. Chapter 4. History's Ruthless Whisperers. Power has never belonged to the loudest. It has always belonged to the most controlled. Men who understood that silence is not an absence of strategy, but its highest form. Machiavelli didn't write for the masses. He wrote for princes. Men who could have anyone's ear, yet chose when and how to speak with surgical care. His core principle: never reveal your whole hand. Words reveal. Silence conceals. And what is concealed can't be countered. Look at courts and empires. The king may speak from the throne, but behind him stand silent figures. The advisor, the spymaster, the chamberlain. These men rarely address the public. Their names are barely known. But policies, executions, alliances, and betrayals all move through their quiet influence. They understood a simple rule. The more people know of your mind, the more they can work around it. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who could have drowned the world in proclamations, wrote privately to himself instead. He internalized his turmoil. He didn't perform emotion for the crowd. That's not softness. That's self-containment. To enemies and allies, that restraint reads as unpredictability. And unpredictability is a deterrent. History remembers tyrants who roared, but it was the calm, silent planners beside them who survived regime changes. The loud ruler dies with the regime. The quiet strategist simply shifts his allegiance and continues. Silence is adaptability. When you're not heavily associated with loud ideological statements, you can pivot without public contradiction. Even in more recent contexts, negotiators, intelligence officers, high-level operators use the same tool. The best in any game are the ones who make the other side talk more. They ask fewer questions, then let silence drag on. Most people crumble, filling the gap with concessions, secrets, or emotional outbursts. Think about your own life. Who unsettles you more? The guy who yells his anger immediately, or the one who goes quiet and unreadable? One discharges his power in a visible burst. The other internalizes it, and you don't know if it's gone or building. Silence creates implied threat. Implied threat is more powerful than explicit aggression because the mind fills in the worst-case scenario. When you stop arguing, stop justifying, stop engaging. Your opponent doesn't know if you're surrendering, plotting, or withdrawing for a better strike. This is not about historical romance. It's about recognizing a pattern in human nature that hasn't changed. People fear what they cannot predict. They cannot predict what they cannot read. They cannot read what does not overexpose itself. You're told in modern culture to speak your truth, share everything, be an open book. That programming benefits those who want compliant, transparent, easily managed men. Machiavelli would laugh at such advice. Power doesn't come from being an open book. Power comes from being a locked vault, with a selectively opened door. When silence terrifies them, you have already won half the battle. They are fighting ghosts in their own head. You stand in front of them, calm, unreadable, and they feel the weight of everything you're not saying. History's quiet operators used that feeling as a leash. So can you. Chapter 5. The surgical response. Silence as strategy. Theory is useless without method. If you want your silence to terrify, not just confuse, you must apply it with precision. This is not about sulking, stonewalling, or passive aggression. Those are emotional reactions. You are not here to be emotional. You are here to be strategic. Start with verbal abstinence. You don't need to answer every question, especially the ones that dig into your private world, your plans, your emotional state. You can respond without revealing. If someone asks, "What's wrong?" you're not obligated to give them a monologue. "I'm good" is enough. If they press, silence or a slight change of topic is a boundary, not an invitation. Next, control response time. Instant replies, signal availability, and low value. In conversations, don't rush your answer. Let a second or two pass. In messaging, don't jump to respond unless it is operationally necessary. Delay creates the sense that your attention is not free. Your time is not cheap. This subtly shifts others into a chasing posture. They notice when you do respond. Gaze control is another scalpel. Most men break eye contact too fast or dart their eyes around, signaling nervousness and subconscious submission. When someone speaks to you, you can simply watch them, still listening, with minimal facial expression. You neither nod excessively nor rush to comfort. When they finish, you let a small silence land, then respond with fewer words than they expect. They will feel examined, not entertained. Frozen expressions are powerful. You don't need to visually reward every joke, story, or opinion thrown at you. If something is not impressive, you don't pretend it is. A neutral or mildly bored expression erodes other people's sense of dominance. They don't get the payoff they wanted. This forces them to either elevate their behavior around you or distance themselves. Both outcomes are selection in your favor. Minimal disclosure. You only reveal what serves a strategic function. Does saying this strengthen your position, build a useful alliance, or signal a boundary? If not, why are you saying it? Most of your history, feelings, and insecurities should be on a strict need-to-know basis. And almost no one needs to know. In conflict, your silence must be disciplined. You don't yell. You don't emotionally unload. You don't write paragraphs trying to win a moral argument. You state your position once, clearly, without ornament. If they escalate, you reduce your engagement. You withdraw attention. You let them burn out against a wall. Nothing destabilizes an emotional manipulator more than a target who no longer reacts. In attraction dynamics, silence is lethal in a different way. You don't chase validation. You don't overpraise. You don't constantly check in. You let your absence create curiosity. Your life is not a live broadcast for other people's comfort. The less you say about yourself, the more they imagine. The more they imagine, the more emotionally invested they become. In a version of you, they assembled themselves. The pattern is consistent. Say less than you want to. Reveal less than they ask for. React slower than they expect. Withdraw sooner than they're comfortable with. This trains the world to recognize you as a man whose attention is scarce, whose inner world is sealed, and whose emotional state is not public property. Silence, applied like a scalpel, does three things simultaneously. It protects your psychological sovereignty. It forces others to reveal themselves. It frames you as the one who doesn't need, only chooses. You are not going mute. You are becoming selective. And in power games, selection is dominance. Chapter 6. Death of the Noise Identity. Everything so far means nothing if your core identity remains addicted to noise. As long as you see yourself as the one who needs to be understood, you will sabotage your own silence. You'll break every pause with nervous laughter. You'll undo every advantage with an impulsive explanation. You have built your personality on constant self-disclosure. You think being liked protects you. You think being transparent keeps you safe. It doesn't. It only makes it easier to categorize you, dismiss you, or manipulate you. Your current identity is a liability, and it has to die. Killing the noise identity begins with one realization. No one is coming to save you from being misunderstood. No one will give you a medal for over-explaining. No one respects the man who throws his interior world onto the table for free. People respect what is costly. Your words, your emotional access, your time. These must become costly. You need to abandon the belief that silence makes you rude, cold, or awkward. Those are labels the weak use to shame restraint. They want you open because open is easy to use. They want you talkative because talkative is predictable. They want you expressive because expressive is exploitable. Every time you feel the urge to justify yourself, recognize it as programming, not truth. You have been trained to fear rejection more than you fear exposure. That is backwards. A man concerned with survival and power fears exposure far more. Rejection is irrelevant. Exposure is lethal. So the old identity must go. The identity that overshares on calls and texts. The identity that narrates pain for sympathy. The identity that performs being nice at the cost of being respected. You replace it with a new architecture. You are a vault. You are not readable on first, second, or third contact. You decide what enters and what leaves. Nothing leaks by accident. This doesn't mean you become hostile. You simply become contained. Your presence is calm, sparse, and deliberate. When you speak, you risk nothing critical. When you listen, you gain everything you need. You become the man about whom people say, "I can't quite figure him out." That sentence is a signal. Your new identity is working. But there is a cost. You will lose people who depended on your constant availability. You will trigger those who fed on your emotional access. You will be accused of changing, becoming distant, not the same. They are right. You are not the same. The part of you that needed their validation is gone. That part had to die. If you cling to being liked, you'll never be feared. If you cling to being understood, you'll never be respected. You cannot serve both your ego's need for attention and your deeper need for sovereignty. One must be sacrificed. Let the noise identity die publicly if necessary. Stop replying the same way. Stop showing up the same way. stop explaining the same way. When questioned, don't give a manifesto. A simple, "I'm just more focused now," is enough. Let them feel the distance. Let them adapt or fall away. Both outcomes free you. The man you were, talkative, exposed, always accessible, was easy to handle. The man you are becoming, silent, measured, unreadable, is not. That is the point. Chapter 7. Final warning. The sound of sovereignty. Now you stand at a split path. On one side, your old life. Over-explaining, oversharing, overreacting. You keep filling every silence so no one feels uneasy around you. You continue to trade your power for approval. You remain loud and harmless. On the other side, a quieter existence. Fewer words, fewer explanations, fewer appearances. You become a presence that isn't on demand. People don't know what you're thinking, and that unsettles them. They no longer feel entitled to your mind, your time, or your emotions. Understand what's at stake. If you refuse to embrace strategic silence, you will stay readable prey. Employers will know exactly how to pressure you. Partners will know exactly how to guilt you. Friends will know exactly how to extract from you. Your life will be a series of subtle exploitations dressed as connection and honesty. There is no neutral. Either your silence terrifies them, or their expectations control you. You are not being asked to play nice. You are being given a choice. Remain an open book in a world of predators, or become the man whose quiet presence alters the room. From now on, every conversation is a field test. Can you let a question hang unanswered without apologizing? Can you sit in a group and observe without performing? Can you end an interaction first without justifying why? If the answer is no, you are still owned. Owned by your fear of disapproval. Owned by your addiction to being seen. That is not sovereignty. That is servitude wrapped in social approval. Machiavelli did not write for men who want to be liked. He wrote for men who want to remain standing when others fall. Those men understand. Safety comes from what others do not know, cannot predict, and dare not test. Silence is all three. So here is the final warning. If your silence doesn't bother anyone, you are not yet dangerous. If your withdrawal doesn't create questions, you are still too available. If your absence isn't felt, your presence was never significant. Withdraw your noise. Starve them of explanations. Force them to feel the weight of not having access to you. Those who respect it will start speaking more carefully around you. Those who resent it will expose themselves and fall away. Either way, you win. Because a man who commands silence, his own and the room's, no longer lives at the mercy of other people's comfort. He rules it